Here we go. And it is live. Take it away, Peter.
You know what? Maybe, let me just do the intro first. So yeah. Oh, hello. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Peter Drescher, and I'm speaking to you from the Agency of Education today. We're really excited. This is part of our Hour of Code speaker series we're hosting from Vermont. I want to do a quick little shout out to my colleague Lucy Delabru, who's actually on your screen as well. She's been helping a tremendous help all through the week this week to get these things going. We've had a bunch of good ones, and I'm going to talk about a couple of those maybe towards the end of the segment today. But we're really excited right now to have the UClass team, and they're going to introduce themselves when we get a second here, and they're going to talk about. There's some young entrepreneurs that have built a company. We're going to talk about a little of their history, how they got there. We'll talk about some things around their experiences with programming and coding, all that kind of stuff. So we're kind of excited to have that going on here today. This is being recorded, so it can be and it will be archived, so you can see it later or share it with other folks, and we encourage you to do so. And I don't know. What I want to start with though is we have also some folks from Lake Region High School joining us. So I want to start with them. Just give us a little context of your situation up there, what you're planning, what your career path might be, and maybe talk a little bit about yourself. That'd be great. Thanks.
So my name is Sydney Whipple, and I'm a senior here at Lake Region, and I'm cousins with Lucy, and I started in a program called Tech Savvy Girls, which is a summer camp for graded school and middle school girls to get them interested in engineering and technology. And I've been involved with the program ever since then. I'm now the assistant director, and I've got networking through it, several awards, and it's a really cool program, so I'm representing them today.
That's great. That's great. And I also want to make sure I mention, along with the Vermont Agency of Education, VitalLearn and the Google Educators Group are helping to put this together. And Lucy represents the Google Educators Group. Do you want to say a couple words about that, Lucy?
Hi, I'd just like to say that the reason that Vermont Google Educator Groups is involved is to showcase the power of using Google tools such as Google Hangouts on Air to extend learning outside your classroom. Because of these tools, we're able to be from 4 different locations here. Sydney from Northeast Vermont, and I am in Florida. Peter is in Barrie, and the team from UClass, where are you from right now?
San Francisco.
There you go. And these tools make learning more accessible and more collaborative. So we're pleased to showcase them and highlight them this week.
That's great. And maybe I'll just say one quick reminder: if you're not speaking, it's helpful if you mute your mic, because then it doesn't switch back and forth if there's a sound in the room or something like that. So let's go right to our UClass team. So if you guys could kind of go through some introductions and then kind of talk a little bit about how you were kind of drawn to the tech industry and that kind of thing. But we'll start with introductions. So great.
Yeah. So apologies in advance for hopefully we don't make you dizzy with our computer moving. We're a little bit cramped here, but we'll try and do our best. So my name is Julie, and I was born and raised in California. I went to USC in Los Angeles for college, and then taught for several years in middle school. I taught in Washington, D.C., and then I moved back here to San Francisco and taught middle school here for a while as well. And I found in traditional schools, I became pretty frustrated with how old-fashioned a lot of things still were, and how a lot of problems were persisting because we weren't thinking in innovative ways about how to solve them. So I got pretty excited about transitioning into the technology industry because I found that there were so many innovative thinkers and outside-of-the-box solutions that I was really excited about. So that's kind of how I found UClass. UClass is a company that runs a website that teachers and school districts use to hold all of their materials and to make it easy for them to plan their lessons and plan their units for their students. And at UClass, I met this awesome team of folks who I'm about to introduce you to. And we work in this little office here in San Francisco. And I was really inspired by each of their paths and how they got to do this really exciting work. And I'm excited to introduce them to you. Leah.
So hello, I'll just squeeze myself in here. I'm Leah. I was born in the mountains of Maine, so I know where you're coming from, Vermont folk. I've been a teacher for 8 years, and I'm the co-founder of UClass, which means that a friend and I came up with this idea that then became a company that now affects thousands of schools and has earned over $1 million. So that's the journey, and I represent the entrepreneurial side of this company. So just a little background, as a kid I was always this optimistic, out-of-the-box thinker, and so when everyone else was complaining about things, I was always coming up with solutions. For example, everyone in the cafeteria is like, this lunch is so disgusting, and I was like, I know, let's make a plan for packing each other's lunch once a week so that we do a lot of work just once but get a delicious lunch every day. That's entrepreneurial, right? So what I was doing was identifying pain points, things that people complain about that sometimes put some people off, but for an entrepreneur, they give you a light bulb, ding, and help you think about a really bright idea. A background about entrepreneurship is that what it means is that you're building a company on a unique idea and taking greater risks than normal. So throughout my life, I've been listening to people whine about things or seeing injustices in the world and identifying what entrepreneurs call pain points. So these are things that the world needs solved. And the key is, if you can figure out what a problem that enough people need solved, you have a great enough idea, and you put enough hard work into it, you can make a company. The better your idea is, the more work you put into it, the more money and the greater impact you're able to make. So being optimistic, having wild and crazy ideas, and sinking hard work into a pain point that I identified in the world has helped me create and scale this amazing company where I get to hire people and employ them and bring my wild and crazy ideas into the world so that they can make an impact, and look at the education setting, which I'm very passionate about as a teacher, and realize that I can make a difference because I can bring my ideas into that space. So that's just a little background. Before I pass the mic, I want to also say that being an entrepreneur is so fun, but is also not without its challenges. And a couple of challenges that I've encountered, and Sydney, I am sure that you can identify, and Lucy, with these things, is that when you have wild and crazy ideas, you get a lot of people who say, no way, that's never going to work, you're insane, why are you doing this? And so you get a lot of non-believers because they're not used to your thought process. And another challenge that I come up with, because we can have another discussion about this at another time, but in the world of entrepreneurship and business, a lot of times men are promoted more quickly than women, so I often find myself as the only girl in the boardroom, right? So sometimes people are thinking I'm woohoo with my ideas, and other times they're like, you're the only girl, what's going on with this? And I just want to challenge all you listeners out there to think, as an entrepreneur, if you see a challenge or a pain point, go for it. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't have your way, because I came across those two very important walls about people's challenges to my ideas, and have pushed through them, and am having the time of my life and making the world a better place.
Thanks, Leah. And here's Abby.
Hi, guys. So my name is Abby, and I'm from Portland, Oregon. I went to school at University of Portland and graduated with a degree in computer science. Currently, I work as a software engineer. And so I became interested in engineering basically after watching my dad at work. He was an engineer for a number of years, and I would spend a lot of afternoons after school at his office. And I was always fascinated at how engineers could turn ideas into real things that at the time I would end up playing around with. And so one of my favorite stories is actually when my dad's coworker was on a stalled train during his commute to work. Rather than being bored out of his mind, he actually decided to write a small computer program with which he could play Tetris. So this is actually a perfect example, as Leah was mentioning, of coming up with an amazing solution to a pain point that someone experienced. And so the idea of being able to go from just dreaming something up to having a solution to a pain point that I could show and share with the world was something that always fascinated me. So growing up, I was always interested in math, problem solving, and just insanely curious. So like Leah, I was always trying to solve problems, but I was going about it by spending hours Googling. I was obsessed with understanding how everything worked, and the internet was my best friend for this. So it was this curiosity and just obsession with solving problems that led me to pursue computer science. My goal at the time was to not only use the tools and apps that I was so obsessed with, but to be able to create them, then share them, and hopefully impact people's lives all over the world. And so exactly what we're doing today, basically. And so a lot of people actually think that engineers sit at their computers all day working by themselves and think of it as rather a lonely job, but this actually couldn't be further from the truth. As you guys can see, I get to work with these 3 fantastic women next to me every day, and it's a blast. Engineers work with designers, sales representatives, other engineers, and plenty of other people, which is what makes it such an interesting and exciting job. And I get to be in the middle of all the action and work with an amazing team towards a common goal that could affect people all over the world. So I'm going to pass the mic on now.
And finally, Shirley. Hi. My name is Shirley. Sorry. Oh, hi, sorry. My name is Shirley. I was born and raised in Northern California, and I studied marketing and graphic communication in school. So right now I handle design and front-end web development for UClass. So to share a bit about how I got here, I had always been a pretty artsy kid. When I was young, after coming home from school, it wasn't unusual to find me sprawled out on the carpet doodling 50 versions of my favorite cartoon superhero. And when I do that, it was like I was in my own world. Hours could fly by, and I would be so focused that time didn't really matter anymore. And I loved crafting. I loved making things from scratch and creating something that was, in my mind, perfect, something beautiful. So no matter if I was making friendship bracelets or baking and decorating cookies, I always applied the same amount of focus. And I remember one time I got a greeting card making kit for my birthday, and I spent hours coordinating different colors of cardstock paper and carefully crafting envelopes and pop-up greeting cards, and I absolutely loved it. And so did my mom, because then she didn't need to buy cards for at least a couple of years. So once I got to college, I began to dabble in digital art as a hobby. I taught myself how to use programs like Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator so that I could make posters for events around campus. And also, when I wasn't busy, I started doing little side jobs for my mom's business, making marketing graphics, and that's basically how I got better. Do not do screen share. I have... Sorry, I have some graphics that I'd like to show you. Oh.
Can you see our screen?
Just turn the presentation on. The bottom of the PowerPoint. Oh wait, this present? Yeah. Okay. So I just wanted to share with you like how I got to the point that I'm at right now. This was basically the first like project that I'd ever worked on using like Adobe Illustrator or Photoshop, and I got help from one of my like really good friends, so this wasn't all just me, but I spent like at least 10 hours just working on this woman, and I didn't add like the shadows or anything, but it was just like tracing over a photo, and it was so time consuming, and but for some reason I just couldn't stop doing it. So that was my first project. And when I worked for my mom, I started off doing very simple designs, doing like this really simple holiday card, and then editing photos, and eventually I worked enough to get to a point where I could make things on my own. I made birthday cards for my friends. I took class presentations as an excuse to make designs for like PowerPoints, and I just got better like that. So it was like a long journey, but eventually it helped me get to a very comfortable place with design. Oops.
Can you see us again?
Yeah, are we back in screen?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so I used little projects like this to practice, and I did it a lot. So slowly I picked up on design, which basically means I got better at making things look as good as they can, and I really enjoyed it. I would use every project as an excuse to experiment with different techniques. And so by the time that I graduated, I had a solid design experience to accompany my business degree. Yeah, so when I started exploring front-end web development with UClass, it was a pretty easy transition for me. Front-end web development basically deals with what websites look like and how users interact with sites. So in the end, I continued to do what I'd always loved doing since I was a kid, which was basically crafting beautiful things, but now I just did it all on my laptop. So instead of designing with lines and shapes on Adobe Illustrator, I design with numbers and other values in code. And I'm still able to apply my love for design in my work. But now it feels a little more useful, more globally available on the web, and I love the idea that users on our website interact directly with what I design on a regular basis. Yeah,
So that gives you a little bit of background about how each of us arrived at UClass. We're now going to go into depth a bit more about what it is we actually do here. So any app or website, whether it's Facebook or Yelp or anything that you use, there's a lot of different things that go into that. I mean, if we can give you a little quick tour of our office. We're not the only ones here. We have some of our engineers, some of our partnerships people. They're very focused.
Can I interrupt for just a sec? I tend to be kind of observant, so I'm looking over your shoulder and I'm seeing Beyonce on the wall over there. It looks like a drawing of Beyonce maybe on the whiteboard. And then I see a piñata. Is that a piñata right behind you? And then there's a basketball hoop too.
Yeah.
So I get the impression that you have a fair amount of fun in your environment there.
And I think that's to what Leah had said about like getting to start your own company when you identify a problem that needs to be solved and you've come up with a really powerful way to solve it. You kind of get to decide however you want your company to work. And so Leah and the other folks who started this company decided we want to have fun at work. We want to talk about Beyonce and have piñatas, and so we do that. But we also work really hard too. So on this team, in order to make UClass, we need to have people who, like Shirley, who are making it beautiful, and we need to have people like Leah who are forging the path, and when we come up with problems and decisions need to be made, she needs to make those decisions. And people like Abby who build what happens when you click on the different buttons and how we actually make a tool that's powerful for teachers. So we're going to share a little bit about what that looks like day to day and how each of those jobs slightly differ.
Yep. Let me just. If Sydney, do you have any questions you want to ask about their backgrounds and things that they just talked about before we move into the UClass piece?
I don't at the moment, but it's really interesting.
And I feel like I just wanted to highlight when I was listening to them, Sydney, I was thinking of all the adventures and all the journey, the pieces that you've gone through, like having crazy ideas. I mean, Sydney helped build a 3D printer at the Maker Fair at Champlain Valley, and she left that weekend with her dad, and her buying her own 3D printer kit, which she's working on now, and she's got it all put together. So I'm sure some people say to you, like, that's a crazy idea, Sydney. Why would you do that? And then she's like perseveres through all those kinds of things. So every time I listen to them and the design work, Sydney's done all this amazing work in design and has won some awards in design. And every time I heard one of them talk, Sydney, I kept thinking about you and your work with Tech Savvy Girls. And
a piece of everybody's fade to what I do, so it was really cool.
And just maybe I'm gonna ask a question. I just want to plant the seed because I know you want to talk a little bit at UClass, and I want to encourage you to do that. But one of the things that would be great for you to share a little bit later is strategies. You've all mentioned things about, and Leah, maybe more at the end of your talk, you were talking about, you know, being the only woman in the boardroom and being kind of, you know, a woman in a technology field and pieces like that. You know, having your own business and being, you know, a young woman, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe talking about like strategies and how you think about that when, you know, how do you get beyond that? How do you like not let that, because it is real in our society. So, you know, how do you let that not kind of get in your way and let you forge ahead? So why don't you talk a little bit about UClass and how you guys all put it together first, and then you can kind of go in that direction.
Yeah, thanks for foreshadowing that, Peter. I think starting with that might be a great place so we don't lose the momentum of that really important idea. I think all of us who sit here, these, you know, 4 girls who are in a field where we often are a minority, have thought about that issue. And I think a couple, maybe you guys can speak to your own experiences, but a couple of things. Number one is really surrounding yourself with peers that can connect with you. We really have bonded in our ability to support one another and recognize we may be the only 4 girls in the office, but we're the 4 girls in the office. And we're going to talk about our experiences and make sure that we don't feel entirely alone in the way that we relate to one another. And whether that's finding someone in another business or another project who you can talk to, I just think it's important for us to kind of band together as girls and women and really, you know, support one another in that way. So it's personal relationships. I think another thing is, I think, Sydney, it sounds like you have that entrepreneurial spirit where when you see a problem, you try to solve it. This is one of the problems, right? This is one of the concerns about the world of innovation is that we need more girls, right? So we feel passionately about empowering young girls to go into this field, encouraging our friends to think, don't let anyone stop you, don't worry, you're not going to be totally alone. And also, how do I really build myself up so that whatever stereotypes are within the system that are stopping girls from feeling like they can have these positions of power, that I can prove those wrong, that I can prove that I'm just as powerful, just as articulate, just as smart, just as valuable, just as mathematical, just as scientific as, you know, my male colleagues, so that they can have, each one of them can have the experience of working with a powerful woman, and the industry can see the impact that we can make. So it's kind of exciting. We're pioneers, right? So just to pull that into what some of the particularities of being an entrepreneur and founder for me is, number one of the most amazing parts of this job is being able to pick a team. So Sydney, it sounds like you're a jack of all trades, a Swiss Army knife of sorts, right? You can do it all. Design, the idea, the implementation. I, unfortunately, am not that person. So recognizing that I have strengths, but I also have gaps, is kind of exciting, because that means I can find the brilliant people to fill those gaps. So when we make a team, we have a very strong panel of co-founders here that we sit down and we say, what am I not good at? What do I need to hire for? And we pick people who are fun and brilliant and fit into the community that we have, but also who bring things that we don't know. My best employees are people who can do things that I can't do. And I think that's so fun to get to assemble that. And then another huge part of being an entrepreneur is brainstorming. So we, of course, have a product and a company that does a specific thing, but that doesn't mean that we're finished. You know, like in writing class, they never let you hand in your first draft and say you're done, right? Like you have to do so many drafts. And making a company and being an entrepreneur is the same thing. In our company, as you could see, Peter, we draw on the walls. So we'll have these meetings where we have markers in hand and we're like writing on the walls, like all these wild and crazy ideas, and then you cross some out. Sometimes I get sad when they cross out my ideas, but I have to realize that's just part of getting to the ones that are going to work, right? So we brainstorm like crazy, we write on the walls. There's a lot of sticky noting going on in this world. We're like, woo! There's so many colors and ways to organize your thoughts. And then we have to take those thoughts and bring them out into the world. So testing is really important. Sometimes I think like, so yellow's my favorite color, right? So I want UClass to be like all yellow. We bring it out into the world, we put it in the hands of teachers, and they're like, I can't deal with this yellow thing. Like, I can't tell what's what. We need like a little more contrast here. That's a very simplified version of user testing, right? So we put our product into the hands of teachers and then get their feedback. If they don't love something, whether or not I love it, it doesn't matter. We need to make sure that it fits the market. So we hold on to our mission, keep that near and dear to our heart, but the way that that looks in the world has to be brainstormed with this brilliant team, then user tested, and then iterated on. So we're constantly, how can we make this better? How can we make this better? How can we make this better? Never getting tired of figuring out how to make that better. And then finally, we have to advocate for ourselves and remember our audience. And I think this goes back to that power of being a woman or being someone with an unusual idea, being someone who's bringing something unique into the space. I have to remember, who am I talking to? Am I talking to a funder, who's going to be funding my venture and is going to want to know about the business side? How much money can we make? They want to know, like, what's my return on investment? Or am I talking to a teacher who wants to know how this is going to serve their students? What story can I tell to make sure that I'm really appreciating and approaching the way that they interact with this product? Or am I talking with a partner, another brilliant company that might be able to really complement the work that we do? So learning how to be a good storyteller and think about, who am I talking to, what do they need, and how can I make sure that they can come to share my vision in a way that makes sense with what they're doing in the world. So just to reiterate, being powerful pioneers, assembling a really brilliant team that fills in one another's holes, writing on the walls, brainstorming wild and crazy ideas, bringing those crazy ideas into the market and testing them on users, and then iterating forever and ever until you are reached perfection, which never happens. And then finally learning how to pitch to the people that you're speaking to. So those are some of the building blocks for entrepreneurship that I have come to appreciate. Abby?
Okay. So I'm going to speak a little bit about what it means to be an engineer, and in particular a software engineer, and my experiences as a part of UClass. So a lot of what Leah just mentioned actually applies completely to being a software engineer as well. You're gathering requirements, you're seeing what's out there in the world that needs to be fixed, and you're trying to find a solution through technology to basically help solve this pain point. And the iterative process that Leah just talked about is very important in engineering. Generally, the first product that you put out there isn't going to be the perfect one. And as Leah mentioned, it's never really perfect. There's always room for improvement. And so a large part of the engineering process is being able to be iterative and being able to improve upon the things that you've created. And so a large part of that is user testing, as Leah mentioned. And so being able to get a product out there, get feedback, and having other great engineers actually to bounce your ideas off of only makes the product better. From a technology perspective, we're talking about websites being faster or the data in the website being more accurate. And so being able to have great engineers surrounding you that you can bounce ideas off of is great. And that's something that we're very privileged to have here. And to speak a little bit about being a woman in the engineering field and in the technology field, as Leah mentioned, I guess the greatest gift in this maybe pain point is being able to be a role model. And I think the greatest gift that you do have as an engineer and being a woman is being able to pull more females into this field. I think a large part of solving this problem is just awareness, being able to show females that it's possible to be a female in the engineering field and be very successful and be a very strong engineer. And I think as a female, I find it very rewarding to be able to go to female engineering groups and being able to speak to young girls and other females and about my experiences, but also saying that it is possible. And the best way, I guess, to work towards a solution is bringing more females into this field. So that's a little bit about kind of my experience with the roadblock of being a female in engineering. But before I go any further, I want to switch over to just a quick snapshot of a piece of code that I've worked on and show you guys the end product. Okay, cool. So this is an example of a piece of code from our home page. So as you can see, code is very understandable. I almost think of it as writing a story. There's a lot of words, and you put together kind of this narrative that you're telling, and
Sorry to interrupt. I am not an engineer, and so I'm trying to learn a little bit about this myself. Abby, do you write you type those things in?
Right, yeah. So these are all things that we've typed in, and they all have, they all have their translations, and they all mean something and kind of make up different parts of the page. So this particular piece that you're seeing right here produces the home page, and so if we move one slide forward, we'll see that this is actually the product of the code that you guys just saw. And I think this is the really exciting part of engineering for me, being able to go from this to producing this. And I think this is obviously very cryptic, and it's obviously not as visually pleasing as what we just saw, which is the end product. And I think being able to bridge those two things is the really exciting part of engineering for me. So I'm gonna go.
Can I ask a geeky question?
Sure.
Okay, so in what we just saw there, do you see, and you see examples all the time, and I'm sure you see websites where you're like, wow, that's someone's kind of like going in a different direction. That what do you see kind of trending in this environment, like in the way people design home pages? I mean, because there's obviously been a progression. I mean, I noticed the page you just showed. There's obviously a background that's kind of like kind of transparent behind it, and the foreground, you're drawing their eye to that. But of course, earlier versions of HTML had, they kind of focused on other ways to present that. What do you see like coming? That's something, a trend in the way that people are presenting material that way.
Yeah, and I think that actually speaks to a great point of another reason why engineering is so exciting to me. I think there's so many trends that I've seen, and engineering is always changing, and I think code always will stay the same, but the way that you communicate through code is constantly changing, and the way that you design pages is constantly changing, and I think that's part of I almost think of it as like fashion. Things are always changing, trends are coming up, there's new and upcoming trends, and you have the power to influence those trends if you are able to put your designs out there. But to answer your question, I think recently the trend has definitely been more pastel colors and sort of simpler designs. So being able to just present like a single page and going, rather than opening up new pages every time you click on a new link, kind of just bringing the person down to that section in a page. And I think that's like really the new, maybe not new, but the most recent trend that we're seeing today. And I think it's great. It kind of consolidates everything onto one page, and you're able to get kind of a snapshot view of what the website and the product is really all about.
Yeah, I was thinking too along the lines of, and I'll just a little personal thing, but I was on Airbnb last night because I'm thinking of going somewhere, and I noticed that a lot of things on the web these days are big photographs.
Yeah.
And then like the page being able to scroll down after photograph down the way. So I think that seems to be kind of interesting in the way that is. And maybe just can you tell us, Abby, like what are some of the languages that we learned about something called Lua yesterday, which maybe is more of a gaming engine, or gaming language, but like what are some of the languages you use?
Sure. So I studied computer science in school, so I've kind of touched upon multiple languages. But currently in my professional work, I work in a program called Scala, which is a functional language for the engineers out there. And I've worked in Java before, I've worked in Python, and I think there's so many different languages and so many opportunities to learn. but the underlying concepts beneath all of these languages generally tend to stay the same. And so I've had great experience with being able to translate between languages through just learning a single language, actually, and being able to expand those patterns out into different languages and being able to program for different devices. And so, yeah, but to answer your question, the current language that I program in is Scala.
Can you
Scala, spelled
Scala?
S-C-A-L-A, like that?
Yeah, S-C-A-L-A.
Yeah, okay, okay. That's great. Thanks. Yeah, that's awesome. Great work. Nice page there. It's beautiful.
Hi. Now I'll give you guys a little bit of an idea of what I do for UClass as a front-end web developer. I basically make our website beautiful, as I said before, and it's I think design isn't. It gets the misconception that it's just sitting at your computer, making little pretty pictures, but actually it has a lot to do with like what Leah and both Abby and Leah said, which was a lot of prototyping. A very key component of design is communication. When I have to make a new page for our website, then I have to pretty much get the idea from the team. We discuss. We decide on what is absolutely necessary on the page, what is most important to convey, what we want the focus of the page to be on. And then from all the gathered information, then I'm able to prototype something and conceive an idea, get it down on paper, then go back to the team and then ask them if it's okay, because if you get too focused in your zone and then don't go back to communication, you end up going down a path and spending hours and then coming back, and then the project that you come up with doesn't align with what you guys need, and then you end up having to do everything over. So it's definitely very important to communicate and make sure that what you are doing is focused. So I know that you went into a little bit of what our website looks like. I can show you what the progression of creating the website was.
While you're bringing that up, can I ask a couple questions too?
Yes. Sure.
So do you use storyboard? Well, maybe two questions and they're related. So I'm thinking about your process you were just describing. Like, do you obviously use something along the lines of storyboarding? And then, like, what is your process? Like say a little more about, like, when you have a design, like, how many iterations, like, just because I'm sure you're trying to make it efficient, too, so that there's not 15 meetings to, discuss a change to the website or something. So, I don't know, maybe if you talk a little bit about that, that'd be great.
Yeah. Normally, I do something like this. This was actually, like, an original sketch for when I was... After a meeting, we talked about the homepage, and I just made a couple different designs just to jot them down, and then highlighted exactly what was necessary. And then after I sketch things down, then I usually go into Illustrator, and for the actual project, I pretty much had maybe like 5 different versions of this. This I've definitely tweaked. And then improved it over time. But when I was starting this whole, oh my gosh, my whole file was just a mess with like all these different ideas. And then basically what I would have to do is maybe go to the dev team and then ask them if what I was doing would get across like the message that we wanted, and if it was efficient. And then I pretty much ask like everyone on the team and then get their second opinion, and that's how I basically get to the point where I see like a finished project. So
Did you say when you said, are you talking like dev team, like DEFCON 1 or something like that?
Dev team. Sorry, I abbreviated that. That's for a development team. So
okay, yes.
The other people on the team that code, I would pretty much pass that by them. So I had like my palette of colors that we always use, and I try and stick to that. Before there was a section for for like testimonials, I ended up having to remove that and then switching things around. And then
there's not much. I noticed there's not much yellow in that color palette there, Leah.
there's only a little bit. There's
Yeah.
a little green. I tend to like green. I have to disagree with you.
What's the little guy's name? You guys must have a name for him.
Oh, his name is Milton. And we recently changed him over to color, so you're seeing the brand new Milton right there. Yeah, so after drafting it on the page there, then that's how we get our website. So like this is the finished product. And basically what I do I plan out the shapes, and then.
So do you design those the light bulb and the kind of spider there and all that?
Yeah, that was all done in here. Yeah,
that's cool. Those are great. You have great graphics on there. They're nice. They're really sharp and simple. It's great.
Yeah, it definitely took a lot of time, but it was definitely worth it. So basically, this is pretty much what I do. I like figure out the shapes, what colors they should be. So I would just change it over here, and you can just change things like that. Make this maybe like, here, let's see, make things wider. Okay, that just made it a little bit ugly. And then you can like go in here, and this is pretty much what I do. I decide what's on the page, and then I make it as visually pleasing as possible.
I don't want to take up all the airtime here. Sydney, feel free to like jump in if you have any questions. I know you seem to have some ideas around this kind of entrepreneurship here. So jump in.
I do have a question. What's the difference between the coding Abby does and what you do for the design of the website?
That's a good question.
Basically, the type of coding that I do is on the front end side, so that's what users see directly, and I set where the buttons go, and like Abby, she does like pretty much the backbone, everything in behind the scenes. It's like all the logic that pretty much runs the site. So without Abby's code, then I wouldn't even have anything to do. Yeah.
Can you give us an idea of something that's behind the scenes? I think a lot of students are introduced to the code from HTML and in CSS, but they might not know what behind the scene means.
Mm-hmm. Well, basically our site is, at its core, it's sharing resources within districts. And for example, something behind the scenes is like when you create a folder and you create a name, we want it to be available on the database, and so that it saves whatever information's in there, and then like other teachers can know to access it. So we want, it's pretty much connecting the lines, and then yeah. It's pretty much just like, it's the brain of the website. So it's like creating the network in UClass and having all the information stored and available. And then I pretty much just make it like nice and then usable.
Kind of like if you look under the hood of a car, Shirley sort of designs all of the things that you see. So, you know, the engine and the fuel containers. I'm clearly not a mechanic, so I'm not doing a good job explaining. But then, like, none of those would work if the engine wasn't designed to actually make a car run. And so what Abby does is make the website run so that it's actually useful. So as a teacher, I can search for something, and what I want shows up because they've designed this system to know when I type something in, oh, we need to go get that thing and bring it to the screen. But Shirley's making it look beautiful as I do that, so I feel warm and fuzzy as I'm searching.
That's great. That's actually a good analogy. Yes, and it's Abby that's making it actually go from the search to come to the screen. Yes,
right.
Exactly. Yeah. That's great. That certainly represents the back end of it. We were going to do a little bit of going back to, like, the barriers we were talking about a little bit, and just maybe from Shirley, maybe what kinds of things have come up for you around thinking about this. I mean, I know graphic designing and web. Yeah, I'm sure you have situations that have come up where um, again, in a technology world somewhat dominated by men, what are some strategies you've had for kind of like, getting your ideas heard and making sure that you're, following your dreams and your skills? That'd be great.
Yeah, well, one thing that I make sure that I do is I make sure that my voice is heard. When I have an idea, then it's just important to not be intimidated. Design is something that is very, it's a very visual thing, and it's the industry of design. There's a lot of girls in there, but I think it takes a lot more exposure, and a lot of girls don't necessarily know that you can integrate design and technology together. But I think that the key to getting more girls into tech and applying maybe their already established love for design in tech is just to make girls more aware of it. And then in like meetings and things where I know that the design in my head would work better than what people are suggesting, I make sure that I voice my opinion.
And I think Shirley won't say this herself, but I think one really key piece, which Leah kind of touched on, is Shirley started with us as an intern and was so good at what she does that she became invaluable for our company. We could not lose her. We had to keep her for her skill set. And so I think, like, old, young, like male, female, like, if you are the best at what you do, that like breaks through any barrier better than anything else. And because she worked so hard and had so much experience that she had cultivated, she created this space for herself where we cannot lose her because she's so fabulous.
I am listening to her talk about design, and I'm reminded of something that Sydney did when she was, I think, a 4th or 5th grader, and she had learned Scratch for programming, and we had brought in Mindstorm robots into Tech Savvy Girls, and none of the girls were really interested in playing with them until a couple of them went over and did it, and they're like, wow, this is so much fun. We got to put it on their Christmas list. And Sydney came back to camp that day. She went home and she had redesigned the Mindstorm box to make it more attractive to girls. And so, Sydney, can you talk? Do you remember that?
Yeah, of course I do. So I'm the person, like, I'll play with anything when I was little, obviously. And so I took I took the box home and I did that using Photoshop because my dad is a professional photographer, so I have that design element. And then I took the robot that was on the cover of the Mindstorms box and I went into Scratch and I made him dance, or it dance. So that's just one example. I've done a lot of different stuff like that. That is really neat.
I think that's like a great thing, like seeing little things that you kind of know and then just playing around with it. I think a great part about tech and design or anything is that if you see something and then you take the extra time to play around, that's when you make the most innovative things. And that's how you get better. That's how I got better, by just tinkering with things. And I think that's like what you did was amazing because you just found something that you wanted to play with.
Can I ask Sydney a question?
Yeah.
Yeah, Sydney, I'm just blown away by your experience. I'd love to know more. I would love to know what challenges and excitements you have come across with Tech Savvy Girls in terms of, being girls who want to code and be tech savvy. What has your journey been in that group?
Well, obviously I started out there in the 3rd grade, and so I started out as one of those girls, and that's really where I learned all of the general pieces of each of them, like the design, the engineering, robotics. I'm now in a robotics class in my school, and I'm the only girl. And we teach the girls, so a lot of it is just getting them interested because we have some that return each year. But for the most part, it's just they don't know what it is. And so introducing them into that. But then once they get into it, we can kind of take it to the next level and have them do their own projects. And some areas they're really interested in, others they're not. So kind of the challenge, I guess, is to figure out what each girl loves to do the most, and kind of we only have a week with them, so figure out the most in-depth experience that we can give them. And as a girl myself interested in this, I've applied to 6 colleges, so I'm looking into engineering or some field with technology, and I've won several awards to do with women in technology, so it's been a really interesting and great road so far.
Wow. And you're a director for Tech
I'm
Savvy.
the assistant director.
Yeah, so as a senior in high school, that's a pretty remarkable role. What attracted you to that role, and what do you think makes you good at that job?
Well, as a student in this program, I've seen college students and other high school seniors have been this role before, or some of them have been junior leaders, which is just helping with the kids. Myself, I do more of the advertising and designing flyers and financial aspects of it. But looking up to those people as a camper, I knew that I would just continue to grow. And so now I'm the leader that I was able to take this position, and I really enjoy it. So, and I remember looking up to those girls like myself when I was that age.
And I think that one of the pieces that is really challenging in the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont, where Sydney lives, is that there are not a lot of role models and there aren't any high-tech industries. So unless you step out of that part of Vermont, you don't have the opportunity to look around you and say, oh, there's that business I want to work for. And I think the remoteness of those areas are what's challenging. And so finding role models and how to bring them in using tools like video conferencing really helps. And also developing the girls' interest in serving their fellow man or female. And so a lot of the girls got involved because they wanted to help younger girls. They weren't sure about the technology part. We want to be helpers. We want to help our sisters. And so in order to be a good role model, they had to upgrade their skills.
That's really inspiring. And Sydney, if you ever want to come to San Francisco, we will show you around because there's a lot of tech going on out here. That would be really neat.
That sounds great.
I just have a quick question for Sydney. Sydney, so do you go to the North Country Career and Tech Center at all? I've been up there and saw the mechatronics lab, and I was wondering if you had anything to do with that up there.
I do not, unfortunately. We're about 15 minutes up the road, but with my schedule, it takes too much out of my day.
Yeah.
So I don't, but that's a great place too. And we've looked into actually having the girls during Tech Savvy Camp go there because it's a technical center, so they've got a lot of different classes, and they're more career-based for them. But we haven't had that opportunity yet.
Yep.
But.
Maybe just we have about 5 minutes left, and I was just thinking for once again our UClass team there, if we're going to share this. As I said, we're going to archive this video. We're going to share this. I imagine this has been great. You guys have been fantastic, but. If you could have, if there could be one thing, some brief thing that you would, say about, what should students who are in high school now, what kinds of courses should they be taking, what kinds of things should they be thinking about to kind of better position themselves, when they're getting ready to go to college or moving through college, or, what are the things they could be doing now to position themselves for moving into the kind of careers that you've all established for yourselves?
Okay, so I can start off and take this question as the first input to this. So Sydney, I think you're a great example of exactly what people should be doing if they want to get into tech. I think Shirley touched on this. I think during meetings, if you're the only female in the room, it can be intimidating, but the most important thing is to realize that you do have great ideas, and it's important not to be intimidated by just being a female. And I think the most important part is being able to show your ideas. And so part of this is really just getting your hands dirty, maybe trying to pick up a side project and dabble and learn as much as you can, really, so that rather than trying to voice your ideas, the great part about coding is that you can show people, hey, this is a prototype of what I'm talking about. How great is this? And so I think really using that and taking advantage of that is great. So my advice would be try to find internships, try to take courses online. There's a lot of really great courses. And so really just getting your hands dirty. And then Sydney, I think you're a great example of how you have a little bit of each of us in you. I'm really inspired actually by how you've really been a role model, and I think that's a great example of how you can really get into this field and make an impact.
I think in addition to what Abby shared, but kind of agreeing with her, just getting involved and, you know, finding the things that you love. Like, I did not love crafting, and I don't love crafting, and it didn't make sense for me to spend time doing design, but I loved organizing people and helping people get better at what they do, and so that's gotten me into a position on this same team where that's what I get to do. And so finding what you love doing and then finding ways to do that, and if there aren't ways to do that, make them. I think some of the most successful people I know now, and I'm now, 10 years out of college-ish, and my most successful friends are people who found opportunities that they loved, and then if what they wanted to do didn't exist, they made the opportunity, whether that's founding a nonprofit or an organization in college, finding or creating a role for themselves in a company that didn't previously exist. All of those things are possible if you just try. And then lastly, finding people who you admire, so whether it's mentors or role models, and connecting with them and just like getting their advice and learning from them, and they down the road, whether it's 1 year, 10 years, will continue to advocate for you because they know what you're passionate about and what skill sets you bring.
It's a bit of a reiteration, but honestly, the key is to expose yourself to as many experiences, as many people as you can. For one, when I entered college and declared my business major, I didn't really know what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. It's a little scary. But once I got to college, I found a bunch of clubs, organizations to get involved with. And that's how I met amazing people that showed me different design aspects. I had a lot of graphic design friends that just happened to be in my building, and then I'd always go find them, go talk to them. And then I found a lot of like engineers, and they would tell me about their projects. And it kind of opens your mind and opens up so many possibilities once you find out about these things, and you don't find out unless you put yourself out there and take risks to meet people and have different experiences. So I think that's a huge key to getting to where you're at. It's exposing yourself to different people and gathering ideas, and then figuring out for yourself what works best for you.
Just one final thought there is I think also practicing a kind of thinking where there's not just one way and just one answer. And I think engineering is a great model for us by saying you have a blank screen and you can make it anything, and your life is the same thing, right? So I think that going through school, remembering that there's not just one thing to bubble in, that there's a whole world that you can create if you dare to have the confidence and dare to put in the time to be able to articulate that. So I think knowing that you can make your own destiny, and especially through technology, the world of entrepreneurship and startups is a world where brainstorms are, the norm. And wild and crazy ideas are imagining a new world for us, and that's really exciting. I think, Sydney, you might also have something to offer since you're a role model who could speak to, what girls need to be successful in this team. What would you add?
Probably just to find others like yourself. It's kind of like been repeated already, but for me, that's been the biggest thing. Like I said before, I've won one award for the past 2 years, and I'm hoping to win it again. But with that, I now have a community of all of these females who are in technology, and I'm part of the Facebook group. And if there's ever a problem, technology related or not, we have each other's back. So that makes the whole experience more pleasurable and easier, but also just fun too. So that'd be my advice.
What's the award, Cindy?
It's from the National Center for Women in Information Technology. Sorry, that's a mouthful. But it's called Aspirations in Computing, and it's a national organization for high schoolers, and there's also a level for college students. So it's a really great way to network, and it's been really good.
That's great, Sydney. Thanks. And we're winding up. We're a little past the hour, but this is great. What a nice way to spend an hour here on a Friday afternoon. It was really wonderful experience. Ladies from UClass, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I know you guys are busy. You have you're entrepreneurs. You have lots of work to do. You better get busy there. So, but thank you so much for taking time out of your day and sharing this with folks in Vermont. And well, hey, I see a guy there. There's a guy walking behind you there.
There are some guys.
Yeah, there are some guys there, right? So, and then Sydney, also thank you for taking time out of your day and joining us on the conversation and really contributing to it as well. So, as I say, this will be archived so people can hear it later and get some of these great ideas that you've all shared. Lucy, what can I say? Thank you so much for all your help this week and anyways, we'll talk more, but thank you so much. It was really great. And just a quick shout out, as I said, Vermont Agency of Education put this together with VitalLearn and the Google Educators group in Vermont. And we're really excited that we could do this today. And as we wind up our week of Hour of Code. So anyways, thanks again, everyone. And I don't know, we'll go code on, right?
Hi, everybody.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care.